watching on the video so bad, like she can't handle herself.
Hi guys, welcome to this week's video. We're already really excited to be here, having a good time. So this week we're talking about crisis leadership as discussed in our chapters 13 and 14, or 12 and 13 of this week. I wanted to hit it off because I was really interested in this chapter, especially learning about the differences in the leaders and how they deal with crisis management and how they essentially either prepare for it or how they deal with it throughout the crisis and try to kind of fix their public image. I was really interested in the difference between the CEO of BP, Tony Howard, versus Captain Sully of the Miracle on the Hudson case study we read about. It was really interesting to see the differences between them because when you read part of the chapter, it talks about how CEO Tony Hayward was really criticized for his leadership through the Gulf oil spill. I'm sure a lot of us remember that when BP had that huge Gulf oil spill, and it was just a pretty big thing, and the victims died, 11 people died, and he seemed very laid back and kind of almost inconvenienced by this, by the whole spill, even though it was essentially the responsibility of his company. He quote, wanted his life back because of this whole tragedy. It's like it was a big inconvenience for him, and a lot of people were really, I don't think they're really happy about that because it made him appear insensitive. And he even seemed to alienate the Gulf Coast residents when he minimalized the whole spill as just a drop in the ocean. Almost, I think we even read it in the book, is talk about minimalization of a crisis where it makes it look like it's not that bad. You really shouldn't be that mad at us. However, when you look back at the case study of Captain Sully, he didn't seem to be as selfish as the BP CEO was. He was the last one off the plane. He was calm. He was collected. And I feel like that really identifies a great leader as someone who will put themselves last. Even though they're supposed to be ahead of everything, they think of themselves last. They don't go on a yacht during this whole crisis. They are the ones there. They are thinking about everybody else first and not themselves. And I really thought that was really interesting to look at, especially if there's different ways you could be like maybe preparing for a crisis like this. It seems like Captain Sully was way more prepared than CEO of BP, Tony Howard.
Yeah, I know that, just kind of touch on what you were talking about, Jennifer, with the BP oil spill. I believe there was a movie that just came out that I think was loosely based on that particular oil spill. Obviously, the CEO or any of the high-level managers working there really weren't in touch with people outside of their company, those external individuals. They had a difficult time maintaining those relationships, and I think that really, I think you could really tell. I mean, a CEO that's acting like they're annoyed because they're having an oil spill and losing money is obviously not going to fare well with people, Gulf Coast residents, environmentalists, etc. I have a personal example that talks about not identifying external indicators during times of crisis, that chapter 13 talked about. And I had worked for an organization where it was a transportation company, and they were not a unionized company, so the drivers were not unionized. However, their employees, their truck drivers, were becoming increasingly frustrated with the type of pay, the benefits, etc. And so the upper level management, they weren't recognizing that the relationship between their driving employees and management, that it was deteriorating. They weren't keeping up to speed in the news as far as unions that were trying to organize truck drivers together. And ultimately, there was a big push for a union to be formed. And, I know everybody has different opinions about whether or not unions are good or bad, but I thought that was a good example to relate to the reading in terms of not recognizing, external influences during times of crisis. I think a lot of times when you're able to recognize those influences, you can prevent a crisis before it happens. or even prevent it from getting worse than it will.
Yeah, that's great. It made me also think about, as far as just both leadership styles, how different the outcomes would have been if they had different type of leader development personally. Like, I feel like organizations should really invest in the proper leader development practices, like as far as investing people time, people learning how to work through these certain crises and manage themselves in certain crises, and able to really have a foundation so when these problems do arise, they can respond quickly and effectively and in the best manner for the situation. I feel like, as far as oil spill goes, he did not have personal leader development. He was concerned only about what he personally was going to lose and not the benefit of the organization, the people it would affect locally, and that made a really negative impact. And their company really never fully recovered their reputation such from that incident because of how the crisis was handled. So, really, the development of leadership in an organization really should be a priority, because it's so much easier to deal with a crisis when there's multiple leaders running around in an organization. If everyone has the skills in the organization to become a leader themselves, they can kind of make those small, quick decisions that need to be made right at that moment, more efficiently, instead of running around looking for direction or looking for the most, or looking for someone else to place the blame on.
Yeah, and to kind of segue into that part of the discussion, even as simple as creating a crisis management manual, or like our book discharge management plan, the CMP. Like our schools do it for the
Jonah, you're breaking up a little bit.
you know sorry guys. But our schools make management or lockdowns or earthquakes, or we're out in the tornadoes or such. Organizations should have the same mentality for like crisis, because it's one, it's logical for you.
Yeah, you're going in and out pretty badly.
Oh, sorry. I'm gonna mute.
There. Okay, maybe you can hear me. I do apologize.
No, it's not you. It's the music.
It was me. It's okay. I'm gonna edit this out, but I'm legit sitting in my garage, so the ice cream truck came by. Okay, we're gonna edit this part out. We're good.
Okay, I apologize, but I just couldn't stop. There's no way.
Okay. I don't know if anybody else, but Jonah froze for me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Jonah's frozen for me.
Oh, okay. Completely lost the train of thought.
Oh, fudge. Okay.
Am I still frozen?
No, okay, you're back.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways.
Sorry. Okay. We're
like losing it over here.
This is last week,
Okay.
guys. We can do this. Last week. Okay. We'll start back over with Jonah. You can restart yourself, and I will just cut to there. Oh my god. Okay.
Oh, wait, what am I even talking about?
Crisis management plan.
Yeah, the plans in schools and earthquakes.
Crisis
Management plans are important to try to implement in an organization. I think the same concepts schools when kids are very hurting how to perform during a lockdown or an earthquake or tornado, if that's where you live. I don't actually have that. I just do earthquake and volcanoes. But I think the importance of trying to implement such is because things happen, and we should be able, for an organization, able to predict what's going to happen, and there should be some form of plan how to react. So, like Latiana's concern, leader of an organization, just searching around for answers. I think that would alleviate a lot of issues with that. And of such plan of one have introduction and also rehearsal times and dates, and with practice these so that an organization, people within the organization can implement such plan. And I don't hear of a lot of companies that maybe it's internal because I'm on a company that don't hear of them, but I don't know too many companies that have a formal plan crisis. And I think that would just help alleviate a lot of issues.
So basically, just to summarize what you're saying, you basically mean like how important it is to have a crisis management plan in an organization, because a lot of different organizations don't have that. And then when a crisis does occur, it's kind of like chickens running around with their heads cut off, kind of like, because there's no really set plan of action. Everyone's looking at each other to figure out what needs to happen.
Yeah, that's kind of what I get from a lot of organizations. Maybe because I'm so young, I have not experienced a lot of different job opportunities, but from the ones that I have been involved with, it's not ever been brought to my attention as an employee or as someone a part of the organization that there is a crisis management plan support. So I think just be try to implement such thing.
I think crisis management is like kind of the elephant in the room that everybody knows is there but doesn't want to talk about because, like you said, it's not something that people are comfortable dealing with, and especially in situations where you have an organization who can't afford to hire a PR team, let's say, to manage a crisis plan or something that's occurring. I mean, you really have to put faith in your leaders, your top level leadership, to be able to handle that efficiently and correctly. And a lot of people, and I'm making a lot of generalizations, but I don't really hear about a lot of leaders going to crisis management conferences, but maybe that's just me not being involved in that sector. So I thought it was just a very interesting read, and it really makes you realize that as a leader, that's definitely something to keep in the back of your mind so that if and when it does occur, you can handle it appropriately.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I think you're all making a lot of really good points. Like you said, Tiffany, it's kind of like the elephant in the room. It's not even something I've heard about in any other of my leadership classes until this class, like about crisis leadership. It's always about how to be a good leader, but it never really talks about how to be a good leader in a crisis. Or when there's in crisis, I feel like could mean either the BP spill where lives were lost, or even something like, I don't know, anybody knew about the Chipotle a couple years back. Someone thought Chipotle, or there was discovered that there was E. coli at Chipotle, and I felt like that was a crisis for them because they had to work through that. They had to pretty much get their reputation back. So I think it's interesting to think about the different types of crises companies could be undergoing, whether it's natural phenomenon like tidal wave or earthquakes, or even more like a huge mistake that they have to cover from.
Yeah, it could be it could be a big crisis or a small crisis. It's on all areas of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm. All right, looks like we have a few minutes left. Any other final thoughts?
Well, this whole thing kind of made me think about I don't know if you guys heard about how Samsung had to recall like thousands of phones because the battery was exploding.
Oh yeah,
the FAA banned them.
And
Team, I know.
Yeah, it made me think about this a lot, this chapter, especially because leadership at Samsung ignored the factories saying something wasn't compatible between the battery and the phones they were placing it in, and they took it as a risk they were really willing to take because they didn't want to scare off customers or make them think that there was a manufacturing issue, and it ended up really backfiring because they distributed all these phones. And then when they started exploding, they were faced with lawsuits, a recall. I read somewhere that they lost like $1.8 billion due to this. And it could have been avoided. And it kind of made me also think about how the Penn State situation, how that could have been avoided if someone would have really just said, we need to handle this right now, right here. It doesn't matter how it looks to the public, because if it gets worse, which it does, which it did over the 14 years that he was victimizing boys, it just looked so much worse that they had knowledge of it and did nothing of it. So I really think it goes back to the whole leader development, making sure that ethical decisions is a part of the development of leaderships that are going to have development of the leaders who are going to be able to make those certain decisions that are going to affect not only their organization, but the people who are consuming the products or the services.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, really good point. Looks like we're all out of time, ladies. Good job this week. And that was our final week. Good job, everyone.
It was nice talking with you guys.
Yeah, you guys are fun. You're all getting great.
I'll get started on all that annotation, finishing all that stuff up. So
awesome.
Cool.